One of you guys recently suggested that I talk about what academia is actually like in Germany and how it's different from what you guys do over in the United States. But honestly, I don't know what it's like in the United States, so I can't really talk about this. And I also don't really know what points to choose because, I just don't know the differences other than from watching TV and listening to podcasts. But I'm gonna try because some of you guys said you're interested in this, so let's go. In Germany, first of all, we have a completely different school system than you guys. We go to school for 4 years, which is called Grundschule, primary school, if you want to call it that. Those are 4 years and they counted 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you continue to year 5, which then is high school or some other school. The high school plus the elementary school that we have is 12 years overall, and in those 12 years sometimes there's 13 because they had different systems in between, but I don't really count that in because 12 is the only one and 13 is for lazy people. Basically, essentially in year 11 you do nothing, or it's weird if they have 13 years instead of 12 in the system. It's just like complete shit, and you can do all of that in 12 years. It's not a lot of work, but German students will completely go nuts about this and whine, and then it's Gen Z against millennials and everyone is fighting, and I'm not getting into that. Fuck that. 12 years is not hard. It was never hard. Anyway, so let's get back to the topic. So you have these 12 years of high school that you have to finish in order to get into university. If you did not do 12 years of school, you cannot get into any kind of university. There are like 10-year degrees and even 9-year degrees, which basically earn you nothing. You can't even find an apprenticeship with the 9-year degree. And you have to do a 10-year degree or some additional work or something in order to even find a job. Or, you can become a cashier, maybe, I'm not sure. But so in Germany, you basically have these 3 school systems after elementary school, which is Hauptschule, like the lowest one, 9 years school education. Then Realschule, 10 years, is also a different type of school, so it's not just the amount of years. And then there is Gymnasium, which is high school, and you finish with a degree after a total amount of 12 years overall with elementary school. So 8 years in that track. And then you can go to university because you then have a universal degree that allows you to study at any university. If you don't have that, if you, for instance, went to Realschule, which is just 10 years, then you can do that degree afterwards, but you would have to attend like evening school or a special type of school for people who went to Realschule and not Gymnasium, the high school in Germany. It is a lot harder, it takes longer, and after that, most likely your degree is limited to a certain track. So you can study social sciences with a degree, or you can study mechanical engineering or something, but you cannot study everything. So if you want to become a doctor or you want to become a lawyer or something, you have to go for the full degree, which then takes longer. And everyone tries to get into high school right away because, everyone wants to go to Gymnasium. So a lot of people try to get into Gymnasium right away because that is yielding the most universal degree. And the other ones, well, if you never want to study, well, go for Realschule, but most people kind of want to study or want their kids to be at least able to choose, and also it's a wider range of subjects and they're better taught. I have tutored kids actually in all these school types, all of them, and I must say that the Realschule, so the 10-year degree, they kind of teach you a lot of bullshit that can be done with one-liners if you just apply the right kind of math, but they don't teach that to the kids, so they leave them stupid after their degree. They basically don't educate them to the full extent that they could and that they do in the same grades or to the same level as they do in high school, just because. There's no reason. For instance, they don't teach them how to do a derivative. Instead of doing a derivative, they teach them this, quadratisch ergänzen in German. I don't know what it is in English. Let me look it up. Maybe it's called quadratic completion? Completing the square. Okay, completing the square sounds really lame. So they teach these kids, actually the lower degree kids, they teach them how to do 1 to 2 pages of calculations instead of a one-liner. And that's the end of it for them. They never really learn derivatives or integrals because that is higher math. How is that higher math? I don't know. Like, how entitled do you have to be to think that these kids are too stupid to do a first derivative or a second or any derivative? I could personally teach them partial derivatives, and I bet all of these kids would just thrive with the right math teacher. It just makes me so fucking mad. Anyway, Anyway, so that is basically our school system. And after that, let's say you have a high school degree, right? So you can enter university and go there for a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree, and then you can go for a PhD. Bachelor's degree is, in my opinion, like the harder degree, because if you have done that, it's really easy to get into the master's degree, and after that you can go to the industry or keep studying or researching. We don't really study. Like PhD students are not students, they are employees and they teach also in university. So it's not like, I've heard that in America people, like when I refer to America, I mean Canada and United States, right? North America. I heard that you guys still have to take courses. Yeah, that's not a thing here. Like if you're done with your master's, you're done. We had something called diploma, and first we didn't even have bachelor's and master's degrees, and there was also a lot of backlash and people didn't want it because it meant more attendance at classes and more checking in on students and more schoolifying university, which nobody liked, and more grades as well. Before that, we went with diploma. What we did was basically just study, and pass, no grades or rarely ever. And then we had like 3 big exams in the end, and if you didn't pass, you wasted 5 years, and that was that. But it was more chill. It was verifiably more chill, and people still celebrate it to this day when they have a diploma and someone else has a master's, and they're like, yeah, stupid master's degree, ha ha ha, that doesn't count. But I actually think that, for instance, in physics, like bachelor degrees definitely much harder than for diploma, which is like the pre-diploma. Yeah, more courses and more grading and more exams. So yeah, it's harder. Yeah, I don't really care. Anyway, so we have this whole bachelor's and master's degree now, which essentially means that you have to apply for a master's from your own university to continue studying there, which is just nuts. Like it's one track of studying. You should just be able to continue like that, which is also very annoying, but that's how it works now. And I mean, it's cool if you want to switch universities right in the middle and get fucked at some other place because you don't know the rules there. Yeah, great, you can switch universities. Actually, a lot of people just stay in one place for a whole course of studies. Like, especially in physics, I've seen people who just studied in Munich, starting from the bachelor's thesis to becoming a postdoc. And then for the postdoc, some of them go to the United States because they like it here. You know, if you want to become a professor, you go to the United States. Like, it's kind of mandatory. And then there's also the opportunity, at least I know it from physics, that if you have a bachelor's degree, you can directly go to studying for a PhD, but then you might have to take 1 or 2 theoretical physics classes as a, yeah, they will just put that on you and say like, oh, you have to do that, otherwise we don't take you. But usually you just need to have a grade 2.0 for that. So the universities have different rules for that, and some don't accept it, but more and more accept it because they need people they can easily exploit. So how does all the PhD student stuff work? So, well, you get accepted to a PhD program, which basically means you have to talk to a professor, find something that they need you for, or they have to make up something. This professor needs to have funding or get funding for the stuff that you do, so that basically half of your income is paid. By the way, half of your income is half of half, because you only get a 20-hour job. And the other 20 hours you are supposed to spend on your thesis. And so basically that means 20 hours of being a bitch for the university and 20 hours of time to yourself that you don't really have for yourself, and you're expected to be there like 40 to 60 hours a week and answer emails at night. And so I've seen a lot of PhD students. It's so weird to call them students. It's just like, the word for it in German is Doktorand, and it just means somebody going for a doctorate. So it's like, yeah, first you're a doctorand, then you're a doctor. Then you're done. I'm Emily's, unless you become a postdoc, then you're not done. Then you stay fucked. And if you become an akademischer Rat, which is basically university girl for everything, person who oversees the lab or something, I don't know. It's like a fixed position that you cannot lose unless you really fuck up. Yeah, like that is the holy grail. Everybody wants to do that. Everybody who doesn't want to be a professor wants to be that. Also, these are very hard to come by, and people usually sit on them until they die. So the only way to basically stay in university is to become a PhD student or employee if you want. And that means that you have to part-time work for the university usually. I know that in engineering, people get like full employment, as in 40 hours a week. And so not all of them are expected to teach, but usually we are expected to teach. That means you have to give classes, like not lectures usually, unless, the professor is on a trip to, I don't know, San Francisco, having fun somewhere else where you are not allowed to go because only, I don't know, 1 or 2 people can come, and that depends on who your professor likes best. It's probably not you, so you stay at home teaching students who then laugh at you because you're not the professor and are loud, and then you get out with a headache and have to continue on your thesis and you feel like shit, that kind of thing. Anyway, so you do that, and you also have to teach like seminars or exercise classes or whatever you want to call them. The students get homework with every lecture, and sometimes they also get Präsenzübungen, presence exercises. That means you get an exercise sheet just for the class, and then everyone has to solve that in class, and if you can't, well, you're fucked. You don't get a solution to it sometimes, like at least in my university. So it's like, you get homework, you don't get a solution for the homework, and in order to have the solutions for the presence exercises, like the exercises you have to attend, that's what presence means, you had to be there Friday afternoon for 4 hours. So for 4 hours, usually without a break or like only a 5 or 10 minutes break, we would have to solve these exercises. And if you could not solve it, sometimes a tutor or PhD students usually, or sometimes bachelor students as well, like if they were really good and had good grades, then they would be taken on. Because, again, you need cheap bitches to exploit. They would help you a little bit, but usually they would not give you the solution, and you would need the solution to pass the exam. So you learned how to work together pretty soon. Studying physics, you learned how to work together fast because you wouldn't pass if you didn't. And yeah, that's basically that. So for instance, my husband, he was a postdoc at my university when I met him, and he was doing some lab classes. It's normal. Every PhD student has to teach usually, unless you have an exemption or huge funding or something. I don't know. I've never met one who didn't have to teach. So yeah, and if you don't like that, you shouldn't do it. And it's a lot of work as well if you want to do it well. And it also means that you are involved with all sorts of meetings, like the professor once a week. I mean, if they're not an asshole. They want to do some quality lectures and exercises, so they will meet up with all the PhD students in a room and discuss problem sheet and discuss whether or not the problems are okay for the students, which they usually aren't because a bunch of PhD students can solve it, so they think everybody needs to be as good as them, people who have done nothing but physics and are the best of the best because they're PhD students in physics, so it's all easy to them and it's all fucking hard to everyone else. Yeah. That shit. And for the students, it's mostly like you gotta find one exercise group to go to, and it usually really depends on the PhD student who does this class, whether or not it's good, you pass, you understand what the exercises are all about. And so I've seen it a lot that professors restrict who can go to which class, like because everybody will switch to that one class that is good, and to not stay with this one sadistic prick that nobody wants to attend the class of, right? But yeah, that's how university works. So you go through a lot of suffering and just being miserable and just passing, scraping by, and eventually you are just glad it's over and you were able to switch sides, and now you can torture the next generation. Okay, I think that's all I got. Do I recommend studying in Germany? And from what I've seen, I think that it's worth to get a PhD in Germany. Well, money-wise, it definitely is worth it if you can do it in time, which means like under 5 years. Otherwise, yeah, it's very, very soul-crushing, and you have no spare time, and you age, and you get a lot of wrinkles and dark shades under your eyes, and you need to be cut out for this. So university will definitely not do more than what's absolutely necessary. They will not cater to you. They don't care about you. you might end up having a nice professor, but a lot of them are sadistic assholes. And, we have Nobel Prize winners here and nobody talks good about them. Like, it's literally, if you mention certain names here and you mention that like with other physicists, or I talked to other people who did their PhD here or at some other university in Germany, you drop a certain name and everyone's like, ooh, no thanks, I don't want to study there. Like, you can't pay me enough to do 3 night shifts a week for this asshole. No thanks. So yeah, people from Munich know who I'm talking about. But it's a hard subject. It really is. I don't know what it's like in other sciences. Frankly, I'm not super interested. I think mathematics is more chill than physics in many ways, and people take more time, but that's just my outside view. I'm not a mathematician. And in physics, it also really depends on what field you're in. Like theoretical physics, it is a lot of coffee and simulating and waiting for your simulation to finish while drinking liters of coffee, but still very hard. It's very hard, and a lot of the time you are on your own. If you have a theoretical topic that you're working on and sometimes you can't crack it, and I remember sitting in my room and just going over tens of pages of just pencil on paper and thinking like, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I crack this equation? What is it? And then it turned out to be like an 8-hour lack of sleep, and I solved it in my dream actually, and I was like, I woke up and it can't be that simple, and it was, and I was like, oh my god, I wasted 2 weeks on this shit, fuck. Yeah, that kind of thing happens a lot because you are so exhausted all the time and you really need to be up for it or take medication. It's hard. And so if you are very intelligent, it's helpful. And if you're just average or high average intelligent, yeah, maybe you better go do something in the industry or experimental physics. And I'm not shitting on experimental physics at all. I like both experimental physics and theoretical physics. I just love how a proper experiment can elevate a theory and show off how amazing a theory is. So I don't really get this whole, oh, you're an engineer or you're an experimental physicist or you're in applied sciences. We all need this too. We still need this to prove our theories, and without it, theory is nothing. Like, experiment is the crown of the theory. And yeah, so I'm not doing that dance. But I gotta say that from working in these departments, as a student, so I know that it's just more chill in experimental physics, and especially astrophysics, astroparticle physics, and just everything that is not semiconductor and multi-particle is basically very chill. And so there are different kinds of difficult. In physics, it's all difficult, but there are different kinds, and you can certainly go into a field where you have a little bit of spare time left. And so, I don't know. Personally, I haven't really decided on what to do. I'm still thinking about going back to academia, but I don't know. I can't feel it, and I don't have the time for it now because I took a huge break with my kid. And so I'm really not sure if I should go back and finish that. I don't know. I'm kind of happy with my degree, and I can do the jobs that I want to do with my degree and my specializations. So I don't know if I want to be a PhD student and go back, and the amount of headache that it would give me, I don't know. So this is my insight from studying physics in Germany and everything that I've seen while also working at the university while studying. I held a little small lecture or class, if you want to call it that. On the paper it was called a lecture, but I don't think that as a student you should call it that. But yeah, that's what I did. And I also tutored people and collected exams and, checked the exams and was part of the grading team. And I've seen a lot of the inside apparatus of university, and my husband also studied at multiple universities and in the United States as well. You hear and see things, but of course this can never be a comprehensive list or view on this whole giant system. In conclusion, would I recommend studying in Germany? If you want a really solid education, yes. You gotta be tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's really tough to study any science in Germany. I'm not sure, but from what I've heard, it's more easy to get into it like in the United States with the college system. I'm not sure if that is true, like if colleges really prepare you well for university. In Germany, it's really like this universal high school degree doesn't really prepare you for all kinds of subjects. For instance, if you study law, if you study medicine, you don't really need to bring a lot of knowledge because those subjects start from the ground up. Nobody has law in school, so you need to start from nothing. But in physics, mathematics, chemistry, and also parts of computer science, I would say maybe, and mathematics, it's really helpful if you're just gifted and have always been good at these subjects in school already. I mean, mathematics from school, all the stuff that you learn in school, the 2 first weeks of studying mathematics, like after that your advantage is gone and the content of the subjects will catch up to you rather fast. So it's not a super great advantage, but it is a great advantage if you are talented and you know how to use that talent, if you are a logical thinker and just naturally driven and you have to be a little bit insane. However, would I recommend German university to my child? She was like 18 now and she was like, hey, should I go study abroad or in Germany or I don't know where we live at the point of that in time. Maybe we'd be in Sweden. I don't know where we will move. But to be honest, if I would live outside of Germany, like in another European country like France or Sweden, I would probably say go study in France or Sweden, like where we are, because it doesn't make a big difference. But in terms of getting in, I would say, well, Germany is just easier to get in and then you have to prove yourself. Like it's not hard to get in. I mean, even if you don't have like the grades, you just have to wait and eventually you can get in. You can do an apprenticeship in the meantime. It's not great, but it's possible. And so it's easier to get in, but then in the first year, everyone who is not talented enough just gets kicked out. So I think if you are intelligent and capable of abstract and logic thinking and you are a hard worker and extremely driven and just very dedicated to that field, not in love with that field, you don't have to be super passionate. Sometimes it's actually a disadvantage because you will take losses emotionally and that's not good. But let's say you're super driven, that is a good thing to study any science in Germany. Anyway, that was it. I don't know what it's like in different countries. Please enlighten me, let me know what it's like in your country. I probably missed a lot of things and a lot of facts as well, but this was more of a story time, I guess, and not like an educational video. So I hope you can overlook that, and that's it.